Hey everyone, welcome to another Epic 7 build guide, this time featuring Khawazu. He is the newest addition to Hero Connection, a feature where you can get units for free by completing a set of missions. These missions differ depending on the hero you want to get, and there's only a selective number of units available. Khawazu is a warrior type fire unit that has built-in cleanse and self-buff, but has some restrictions in his skills that prevents him from being a versatile unit. If you are in need of a unit to farm Golem up to stage 10, he is a good candidate because of his unhealable debuff. I would definitely get him if you missed out on Soul during the Guilty Gear collab, or if you don't have Ken and Hazel in your team. For now, let's jump right into his skills and talk about how he works overall. Khawazu's first skill, Flame Strike, hits a single target with a 25% chance to burn for 2 turns. For those who are unfamiliar, burn deals around 60% of the caster's attack and ignores, I think it was 70% of the target's defense. Pretty big numbers if you compare to how much bleed does, which is around half the burn damage. Right off the bat, building him with pure damage is a good thing. This is your go-to damaging skill and is where most of his damage comes from. Even though the burn chance is pretty low, there are some upside to this. First, it's his basic attack, so there's no cooldown. Second, investing in this skill up to +6 will increase the chance up to 50%, so you have more chances of applying for each attack. Lastly, spending 10 soul burn will increase this to 100%. Now, don't be fooled though, 100% chance doesn't guarantee to apply burn. Definitely not against bosses, since we have to take effect resistance and effectiveness into consideration. The higher the resistance, the worse it is for you. This is what I mean by where most of his damage come from. At a cheap cost, you can spam S1 soul burn effect and rack up those burns. Khawazu's second skill, Composure, is a passive skill that has 2 different effects. One is a cleanse effect that removes all debuffs on himself, while the second effect increases his attack for 2 turns if he is attacked while debuffed. In a case where Khawazu gets hit by an attack skill that has a chance to apply a debuff, right after he gets hit and the debuff is applied, he will immediately trigger both of his effects, cleanse and then buff. This tells us that debuffs are applied first before damage calculation. This skill is very strong in PvP, especially with so many players using Dizzy, and in higher ladder, ML counterparts of Aramintha and Baal and Cezanne. The downside to this is that it only affects him and he can only negate debuffs from one skill. You have to gear him pretty well to take down priority targets and give him enough time for the rest of your team to recover. Fighting against Dizzy might be the most difficult out of all 3 due to the elemental disadvantage, but then again, you don't really need to take her down. You might want to focus on their main DPS instead. This skill has a 3-turn cooldown, but can be reduced to 2 turns through skill enhance. This matches well with the duration of his buff, which means this skill is available again when the buff expires. Khawazu's third skill, Ember Storm, is a single target skill that applies unhealable debuff for 2 turns. However, it's only 1 turn if he is not awakened 3 times. Good to have against bosses that has some form of sustain, either through their own skill or mobs alongside it. Normally you would use this skill to apply debuff, but if you are doing a run where unhealable is redundant and you don't have decent amount of effectiveness from S1 to proc burn, then you can use this skill mainly for damage. With a cooldown of 4 turns, there will be a 2-turn downtime. Unlike Hazel, you have to be very careful when to use this skill. Only use it when you think the target is going to heal. But once you skill enhance this to +3, cooldown is decreased by 1 and becomes a bit easier to use. He is a good candidate in golem hunts, but he is hard to use in stage 11 and requires specific team composition and approach to use him effectively. If you want to bring him in stage 11, I would highly suggest you pair him with mascot Hazel so you have more unhealable uptime. Yes, the tree can cleanse and heal the golem, but due to the order of events, this is not a problem. The tree will heal first before cleansing, so you are actually blocking the healing. Due to both Hazel and Khawazu having built-in unhealable debuff, you can reapply it pretty fast. In terms of which skill to enhance first, it depends on where you mostly want to use him. For PvP, always get Composure to +1, and for Golem hunts or sustained focus runs, get Ember Storm to +4 to decrease cooldown. If you plan to make him as one of your damage dealers, getting Flame Strike to at least +4, best at +6, to get more burn chance. Once he has decent amount of effectiveness, then you don't have to rely too much on soul burn, saving that resource to use on other units. Okay, let's have a look at gear composition. First off, I did take my time getting him to 6 star and tried to build his gears based on what I have lying around. So this is nowhere near perfect, but you could use this as an idea on what you can build. I didn't go full on with him because I already have both Ken and Hazel. Personally, they are better than him, especially when doing Golem stage 11. We have a general idea of how Khawazu's skill set works. His gear should help maximize his damage output on S1, since you will be using this the most. You will need a decent amount of effectiveness both for his burn, but most importantly, his unhealable debuff. You do have soul burn effect on S1 to increase it to 100%, but the downside to this is that you will be relying on soul burn, which means other units may not be able to use their soul burn effects. Either equipping him with a hit set or have a ring with a main stat of effectiveness is good to have. However, I would only use that ring if the rest of his gears do not have effectiveness as a substat. Now, why is this? Well, a level 85 ring will give 60% effectiveness at max, and to me that's good enough for him. With the new additional features in Epic 7, you can now craft accessories, so getting these shouldn't be a problem. Attack set is also good for him to not only increase his initial damage, but also his burn damage. Remember, burn deals around 60% of caster's attack, so the more attack he has, the better. Crit chance and crit damage will not increase burn since DOT effects do not crit, but they are still vital for any DPS units. Another set that's useful for Khawazu is Speed Set. This is mostly used in PvP because when you are dealing with units that has immunity in their kit, you want to apply the debuff first. Unity set should be avoided as much as possible. I mean, even with the thought of using it to stack more burn, there are a few problems. Dual attacks are luck based, and there are no artifacts that support dual attack chance for warrior units. The only time you would consider this is when you are using a ranger unit equipped with Infinity Basket. At best, he can have up to 31% dual attack chance, 14% from Infinity Basket, 5% from his base dual attack, and when Desperate Times calls for Desperate Needs, 12% from 3 Unity sets. It's just not worth it. For substats, have a combination of attack percentage, speed, effectiveness, crit chance, crit damage, and HP. Depending on the sets, you may want to prioritize some over others. For example, a build of attack crit set means that you need to prioritize effectiveness and get it to a decent amount. Having it at 60 to 80% is good enough for high level gears. Any more than that, then it may become an overkill. Main stats of Ring and Amulet will also depend on the sets you choose, and the stats you need. You will have to do some tweaks, but a general rule is either have crit chance or attack percentage on amulet, and effectiveness or attack percentage for ring. When choosing boots, it should have a main stat of speed, and this is what you should be looking for with any gear set you plan to use, mainly because his base speed is low. Grinding specific boots, especially in hunts, will take a while depending on your luck, so you can use attack percentage as a temporary main stat. There are a few 5-star artifacts that Khawazu can use, Junkyard Dog being one of the top candidates. It has a 25% chance up to 50% of applying burn when he uses his basic attack. This means with his S1, it is possible to proc 2 burn effects on a single attack. Since Khawazu kinda relies on burn to deal a portion of his damage, having this gives him an extra boost. Also, his second skill is a passive skill, meaning you will be using S1 a lot more compared to units who don't have it. However, this artifact may not be available for everyone, especially those who missed out on the Guilty Gear collab. Sadly, that's the only way to get this artifact. However, it may become available again in the future, who knows? But don't worry though, there are still others that you can use instead. Durandal is a good option, which increases combat readiness by 8% up to 16% when attacked, but only triggers when HP is less than 75%. In a way, this synergizes well with his S2, since his second effect requires him to be attacked. If all conditions are met, he will self-cleanse, self-buff, and on top, increase combat readiness. It's very helpful if you're not using speed set. This artifact does not have a cooldown, meaning every time he is attacked, this effect will trigger. For 4-star artifacts, El's Fist is a good choice, increasing attack and speed by up to 25% as health decreases. These stats go up to 50% at max level and are both great for Khawazu. That extra attack will increase both initial and burn damage, while speed increases his burn application, which in turn increases total burn damage. Health Cutter is okay to use, increasing attack and crit by 2% up to 4% whenever a turn ends, both enemy and ally. Good to use in high speed team compositions, and is a big plus if you have units that have extra turns in their kit. This puts less stress when trying to get his crit chance to a decent amount, since you can just rely on this artifact instead. I would use this if you don't have the right gears for him. For 3-star artifact, Ranon's Memorandum is good to use, but don't use this in PvP. Stick with speed set instead, because you need to farm stacks to actually make this useful. This is probably something that you can use when Khawazu leans more towards a supporting role rather than a DPS role. For example, if you want to use him mainly for unhealable, this is something that you can use. Ranon is one of those very few 3-star artifacts that is worth investing in. At max stacks, this gives 20% more speed. Axe is another 3-star artifact, but I would only use this when you don't have the right gears. Even if he is missing his burn, at least he is doing damage from crit. When using Khawazu, you will be spamming mostly on S1, racking up burn over time and building up his damage. If you are fighting bosses with heavy sustain, use his S3 just in time before the boss heals. There are a few contents you can use him in, most notably golem hunts, due to his elemental advantage, as well as the unhealable debuff. Pair him with our golem queen Hazel, you will never have to worry about the tree. Also, having another unit that has unhealable will give Hazel some turns to buff and heal. Pretty useful for faster runs and better survivability of your team. The only downside is when reaching stage 11, the tree will not only remove unhealable debuff, but also all his burns. The only scenario that I can think of when using Khawazu without Hazel is when you are using a nuke team. His S3 should give you a few more turns, to make sure you finish off the boss in time, in case a perfect nuke doesn't take him down. Khawazu in PvP is actually pretty interesting, and I'd say in the current meta, he is strong. He can block off Dizzy and ML Balsizan's heavy debuffs, downside being he gets away scot-free, while the rest of your team are pretty much screwed. At this point, you can use this opportunity to take down that one DPS that will probably wipe your team, considering they haven't got their turn yet. In the end, the best solution with this kind of team composition is a unit that has immunity with shit tons of speed, or gear your whole team with immunity set. Healers, with the exception of those with cleanse, will have a difficult time doing their job against Khawazu's S3. The duration should be enough for your team to take down that target. Immunity is not really a problem as long as you go first. Due to the fast nature of PvP, burn will serve more as a finisher when initial damage is not enough. Khawazu is a good unit to have, but unlocking him in connections does require you to get past 1010, which to many new players may be a challenge. For some, when you reach this point, you might already have better units like Hazel and Ken. He's not really that sought after, but if you want to use him for Golem or PvP, he's not too bad. His missions to unlock him is pretty, how should I say, annoying. There's that one particular mission that took me ages to complete, just because I didn't have a decent team to farm it fast. And it's pretty boring. It's this one here, eliminating 300 Flumas. You can farm these in both 2-3 and 2S1, which gives 3 per run. These are the only stages that gives the highest number at the moment, but in future contents, it may change. So yeah, for now, you'll be in for a treat. 100 runs. That's the end of my build guide, and I hope this gave you some ideas how to build your own. I'm very interested to see how you build yours, more so if it's something that works for you that I didn't mention in my video. So feel free to put it down in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Rover out.